Fruity, 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 fruity.
Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. Welcome back to another episode of Fruity Fruits, where I taste fruits that are fruity. If you've missed the previous episodes, I will put the playlist above and down below, and you can check that out on your own leisure. So today, I'm going to be tasting Noni. So here's an example of a Noni fruit. It's also known by its scientific name, Morinda citrifolia, and it's found in Southeast Asia, Australia, and widely spread in Polynesia. So according to the National Institute of Health's website, Noni has been shown to have antioxidant properties, immune stimulating properties, and tumor fighting abilities. So lots of promise in this fruit, but I think what is the major deterrent and what I think it's become infamous for is its smell. Noni, when the fruit is ripe, is very, very odoriferous. I would describe the smell as being a bit like dill pickle. It has that kind of vinegary tang, a bit like Limburger cheese, kind of foul smelling cheese, not like a cheddar cheese, but a very ripe cheese, and a bit like excrement as well. Yeah, so it's pretty unpleasant. So Noni is known by a few different names, including the famine fruit. It was eaten during times of desperation and starvation. These were quite expensive. I ordered them from Miami Fruits. I got a small box of them for $87. They arrived green, and I placed them on this tray and I put them in my garage to allow them to ripen because I knew that they would develop the smell. When they arrived, they didn't smell of anything. And as you can see, some of these are still green. So after I do the taste test, I'm going to put these back into the garage to allow them to finish ripening. So once they're green, they start to turn white, but they still remain quite hard. Then they get kind of yellow, and then they get this translucent quality to them where you can almost see through these kind of pores, and they become very, very soft and very smelly. So there's a few different ways to tackle Noni. You can eat it raw, which I'll be doing today, and then you can roast the seeds afterwards. I think most traditionally how Noni is prepared is that it's made into a fermented drink. So I'm also going to be doing that today, but then I'll have to follow up in a couple months because the fermentation process takes quite a while. So then I'll do a follow-up video where I'll consume the fermented Noni juice after we let it sit for a couple of months. It turns into this brown pulpy liquid that you have to strain, and then you can consume the juice. You can store it in your refrigerator at that point to stop the fermentation process. All of it sounds very curious, and I am super excited to see what happens to this odoriferous fruit after it sits around for a couple of months. So stay tuned for that video. But in the meanwhile, let's try a Noni raw. All right, here we go. So this looks like a very nice example. So it has gotten very translucent. So it's very interesting the way the Noni grows on the branch. So the ones that are farthest away from the trunk of the Noni are the youngest, so they'll be the most green. And as they get closer to the trunk, they get larger and more ripe. Currently we're in fall here in New England, and it's been pretty cool. So these have been sitting in my garage, and it took about 3 days for them to go from this state to this state. I imagine if I did this inside, or if you lived in a warmer climate, this probably could happen within a day or even overnight. All right, so let's cut this open and see what it looks like inside. Ooh, it's actually quite firm in the inside. Wow, look at that. This actually reminds me of the interior of a soursop, which is the most recent Fruity Fruits video I did. A similar kind of vein in the middle here, and kind of seeds that are radiating outwards, and also this kind of translucent quality of the fruit. Now, you can really smell the pungentness of this fruit now. In terms of pungency and strength and concentration of the odor, it reminds me a little bit of fish sauce. If you've ever used fish sauce in Southeast Asian cookery, it's a very concentrated condiment made of fermented, usually small fish like anchovies, but it's very, very pungent. And this has a similar strength of pungency. The smell is quite different. This does not smell like fish at all. It's sometimes called the vomit fruit or the cheese fruit, and it does smell a little bit cheesy. So let's give our Noni a taste. Itadakimasu. A lot of seeds. Actually, I think you can just munch the seeds as well. So I'll go ahead and do that rather than spitting them out because there's so many. Well, very interesting. That smell definitely does carry over. It seems to reduce a bit in terms of when it goes into your mouth. It's significantly tart, more tart than I expected. And that flavor afterwards is kind of lasting. It does still taste a bit fetid and sour. And now it tastes more vomitous. It does taste a bit like after you've had something you weren't supposed to eat and you toss up your cookies and then you have that kind of residual kind of bile flavor. It's not pleasant. But what I find most interesting is that there's a tingling sensation, kind of a numbing sensation that happens almost immediately once you start eating the fruit. My tongue feels a little bit raw and it's all kind of numbing and tingling. I still can taste and I can still feel, but it reminds me a little bit of when you have like Sichuan peppercorn and you get that little bit of tongue numbing quality. It's a bit like that. Or if you have a pineapple that's slightly not ripe, it does that kind of something to the inside of your mouth. That's what this is doing. The flavor is not very good. And there's not much fruit to this. Mostly it's seeds. So inside your mouth when you're eating it texturally, you just get a little bit of the fruit itself, but mostly it's seeds. It's not really a nice texture either. The seeds are very woody and hard to get through. It's kind of like when you're chewing melon seeds, but much tougher. Again, the flavor is not very good. It's tangy and just smelly. I've heard if you put a little bit of salt, it can be a little bit like cheese. Let's try that. Makes it more savory. Wow. So as you get closer to where the noni is attached to the branch, the concentration of that numbing quality seems to increase. When I ate the end here, there was a bit, but then as I got closer to the end here, it's very, very strong. Also, the pungency is much stronger too as you get closer to the stalk. Very, very pungent and stinky. And when you have it with the salt, it definitely enhances it. It makes it taste more savory and more like Limburger cheese. But I don't find this pleasant at all. Perhaps if it was cooked or something, it was paired with something. And this comes from someone that appreciates stinky things. I like fish sauce. I love natto, but this is just a little bit over the top for me. It's just kind of overwhelming in terms of the strength and concentration of the smell. It's kind of similar in terms of intensity to Zuströmming, the fish that has been fermented and then canned, and it produces so much gas from the fermenting process that the can actually bulges. It's intense like that, not as intense. That was probably the most intense smelling thing that I've ever eaten. But it's probably in a similar class. But let's go ahead and make some juice, shall we? So what I've got here is a cleaned 1 gallon glass jar. So before I ripened my fruit, I washed it already. And now what I'm going to do is simply put it into the jar. Now we want the fruit to be very, very ripe. As it ripens, it kind of oozes a little bit. It kind of sweats. So that's exactly what we want. Just place them in the jar and pack them in there really well. Some of my noni are not ripe. I'm going to wait till these fully ripen before I add them to this jar. So right now I have 4, and then I'm going to add the one that I cut up as well. Although this is green on the end here, this one is oozing already and very translucent on the top, so I'm going to add this one as well. Now what I'm going to do is just close this up, and then you set this out in the sun. And then the fruit will begin to weep and start to exude its juices. You let that sit there for about 2 months and it will become very dark. At that point, we're going to strain out all the pulp and then the juice is ready to serve. So in the meanwhile, what I'll do is take a picture of this jar every couple of days and watch its progression, and then in a couple months, we will give this a taste. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that edition of Fruity Fruits. Let me know down in the comments below if there are any other fruits that you'd like me to taste or try. Be sure to check out the Fruity Fruits playlist so you can see some other interesting fruits. And yeah, be sure to share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media. Subscribe and like, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye!